The world of celebrity and royalty often intertwines with the media, but no one expected the latest scandal to rock the British monarchy quite like this. When Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales, took legal action against a group of liberal television show hosts for allegedly insulting her daughter, Princess Charlotte, the public was left in shock. What unfolded next became one of the most unexpected and gripping courtroom dramas of the decade. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. It all started during a lighthearted segment of a popular American liberal-leaning talk show. The hosts, known for their sharp wit and unfiltered opinions, veered into controversial territory when discussing the royal family. As they debated the relevance of the monarchy in modern times, one host made a remark about Princess Charlotte that was intended to be humorous, but quickly turned sour. The comment, which referenced the young princess's demeanor and mannerisms in a recent public appearance, was met with awkward laughter from the panel. However, the remark was clipped, circulated on social media, and instantly sparked global outrage. Within hours, the hashtag #RespectCharlotte trended worldwide. Royal supporters and even some critics of the monarchy called the remark cruel, unnecessary, and crossing the line. Children of the royal family had always been a delicate subject for media scrutiny, and while public figures like Kate and Prince William were accustomed to the scrutiny, their children were widely considered off-limits. The backlash grew so intense that even celebrities, politicians, and media figures who were otherwise indifferent to royal matters voiced their concerns. Kate Middleton, known for her poise and restraint in the face of media attacks, surprised the world when her legal team issued a formal lawsuit against the talk show. It was an unprecedented move. While the royal family had often ignored even the most scathing media coverage, this time was different. Kate, a mother before a princess, had had enough. The lawsuit alleged defamation, emotional distress, and a breach of ethical journalism. It claimed that the comments made about Princess Charlotte were not only inappropriate, but could also have long-term psychological effects on the young royal. Kate's lawyers demanded a public apology, a formal retraction, and damages. The case sent shockwaves through both the media industry and royal circles. For years, the royal family's mantra had been never complain, never explain, a philosophy instilled by Queen Elizabeth II. Kate's decision to take legal action was seen as a landmark shift in royal strategy. As the case gained traction, the talk show hosts found themselves in a firestorm of controversy. At first, they attempted to defend themselves, claiming that the comment had been taken out of context and exaggerated by social media. But their initial dismissive response only made matters worse. The show's sponsors faced boycotts, their ratings plummeted, and the network was pressured to take action. Under intense scrutiny, one of the co-hosts issued a half-hearted apology, but it was too little, too late. The case moved forward to court, drawing international attention. Kate Middleton attended the trial, exuding the same elegance and grace that had made her one of the most beloved members of the royal family. Her presence alone signaled the gravity of the situation. The courtroom was packed with journalists, legal analysts, and royal watchers. It became clear that this was no longer just about one insensitive comment. It was about drawing a line in the sand against the exploitation of children in the media. The defense tried to argue that their show was satirical in nature and that public figures, including their families, were often the subject of comedic commentary. However, Kate's legal team countered that there was a moral and ethical distinction between satirizing adult royals and targeting a young child. They presented evidence of similar incidents in which public ridicule had led to real-world consequences for children of high-profile figures, including increased bullying and long-term psychological effects. Then, an unexpected twist took place. A former producer of the show came forward with damning testimony. She revealed behind-the-scenes footage showing the hosts discussing how they could push the envelope by making jokes about the royal children to get more media attention. The leaked footage contradicted their earlier claims that the comment had been an offhand remark. It became clear that the show had knowingly crossed the line for the sake of ratings. The revelation changed everything. Public opinion, which had already been largely in Kate's favor, turned into outright condemnation of the talk show. Even some of their industry peers distanced themselves, calling their behavior unacceptable. The network, desperate to salvage its reputation, issued a public apology on behalf of the show. The talk show itself was suspended, and multiple sponsors severed ties. The host who had made the comments resigned under mounting pressure. The trial's conclusion was swift. The judge ruled in favor of Kate Middleton, declaring that the comment about Princess Charlotte was both defamatory and ethically irresponsible. The talk show was ordered to pay a hefty sum in damages, which Kate promptly announced would be donated to children's mental health charities. In her first public statement after the ruling, she expressed her hope that this case would set a precedent for how media outlets treat children in the public eye. However, what happened next shocked everyone even more. Just when the dust seemed to settle, Prince William took an unprecedented step by publicly addressing the issue in a rare on-camera statement. Standing in front of Kensington Palace, he spoke about the importance of media responsibility and protecting children from unnecessary public scrutiny. His words carried a weight that resonated beyond royal supporters, as he himself had grown up under the relentless gaze of the media. He called for a new, ethical standard for public discourse about public figures' children, emphasizing that a child's right to privacy should always be paramount. The fallout from the case didn't stop there. Several other talk shows and media personalities began re-evaluating their own content, fearing similar legal consequences. Some networks even introduced new guidelines restricting discussions about the minor children of public figures. The case had become a watershed moment in media ethics. Kate Middleton's victory was not just legal, it was symbolic. She had defied expectations by taking a stand against the culture of casual cruelty in entertainment media. More importantly, she had done it not as a princess, but as a mother protecting her child. Public perception of her soared to new heights, and even some of her past critics acknowledged the importance of her actions. As for the talk show hosts, their careers were never the same. Some attempted to make comebacks in different formats, but the stain of the scandal followed them wherever they went. The lawsuit had forever altered their reputations. Meanwhile, Princess Charlotte, blissfully unaware of the legal battle fought in her name, continued to grow up surrounded by the love and protection of her family. As the world moved on from the scandal, one thing was certain. History would remember this case as the moment when a princess fought back and won, not just for her daughter, but for every child subjected to the cruelty of public scrutiny. The victory of Kate Middleton's lawsuit against the liberal talk show hosts set off a ripple effect across the media industry. But it was only the beginning of a much larger movement. The legal case had not only highlighted the problematic way in which high-profile children were discussed in public discourse, but it also exposed the unchecked power of television personalities who had, for years, hidden behind the guise of entertainment to justify their insensitivity. However, as the world watched the fallout of the trial unfold, what happened next took everyone by surprise. In the immediate aftermath of the ruling, media organizations across multiple countries found themselves under intense scrutiny. The case had forced a re-examination of media ethics, particularly regarding the treatment of children in the public eye. Several leading networks in the US, the UK, and Europe convened emergency meetings with their legal teams to review their policies. Some even went as far as implementing new guidelines to prevent similar controversies. The most shocking development came from within the very network that had aired the controversial talk show. The top executives, recognizing the irreversible damage the lawsuit had inflicted on their reputation, announced a complete restructuring of their talk show programming. The talk show in question was officially canceled, its slot replaced with a new format that focused on responsible journalism and fact-based discussions, rather than sensationalist commentary. The hosts involved in the scandal found themselves not only out of work, but also blacklisted by many major networks, making it nearly impossible for them to secure new jobs in the industry. Meanwhile, Kate Middleton's bold move inspired other public figures to take similar stands against media misconduct. Within weeks of her legal triumph, several celebrities who had been victims of defamatory media coverage announced their own lawsuits. Hollywood actors, musicians, and even political figures who had long endured baseless rumors and damaging narratives in the press saw Kate's case as a precedent and decided it was time to push back. This resulted in an unprecedented wave of lawsuits against tabloid newspapers, talk show hosts, and online gossip platforms. What truly shocked the world, however, was the response from lawmakers. Kate's lawsuit had sparked a larger debate about media responsibility, and several politicians in the United Kingdom and the United States took notice. Some members of the British Parliament proposed legislative measures aimed at strengthening protections for children in the public eye. A new bill was introduced that sought to impose harsher penalties on media outlets that spread harmful narratives about minors, whether they were children of celebrities, politicians, or royalty. In the US, members of Congress also began discussing potential updates to media regulations, particularly regarding how television networks handled satirical or opinion-based commentary that involved minors. Media watchdog organizations, which had long called for a greater accountability, used Kate's case as the prime example of why stricter regulations were necessary. The conversation was no longer just about a single case. It had evolved into a broader discussion about the ethics of modern journalism. As this global shift in media responsibility unfolded, Kate Middleton found herself unexpectedly becoming an icon of change. Though she had never sought the limelight in such a dramatic way, her unwavering commitment to protecting her daughter and, by extension, all children in the public eye elevated her public image to new heights. People who had previously dismissed the royal family as irrelevant or outdated now saw Kate in a new light. She wasn't just the future queen consort. She was a mother willing to take on powerful institutions to ensure a safer world for her children. The newfound admiration for Kate also reignited discussions about the monarchy's role in modern society. Many royal experts argued that Kate's proactive approach to the lawsuit demonstrated a shift in the royal family's strategy. Historically, the monarchy had adhered to a policy of silence, choosing to ignore even the most inflammatory media attacks. But Kate had proven that there were times when silence was not an option, and that the royal family had a right, and even a duty, to defend themselves when necessary. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the lawsuit had also caused a shift in the way the royal family handled media relations. Reports emerged that Prince William had held a series of private meetings with senior royal advisors to discuss how they could more effectively manage media attacks in the future. There was a growing realization that the age-old policy of never complain, never explain might no longer be sustainable in the digital era, where misinformation spread faster than ever before. As discussions about media accountability continued to dominate global headlines, some of the most unexpected consequences of the case began to emerge. A major social media movement took off, demanding that children of all public figures, royal or not, be treated with more respect. Parents around the world began sharing their own stories of how online bullying and public scrutiny had negatively affected their children. The issue had struck a nerve, revealing the dark underbelly of celebrity culture, where even the youngest and most innocent were not spared from harsh public commentary. Recognizing the impact of the movement, Kate and Prince William decided to take action beyond the courtroom. They launched a new initiative under the Royal Foundation dedicated to promoting responsible journalism and protecting children from the negative effects of media scrutiny. The initiative focused on working with news organizations, social media platforms, and mental health experts to create better standards for how children were represented in the public sphere. The announcement was met with widespread praise, with many commending the couple for using their influence to enact meaningful change. However, the story took another shocking turn when one of the former talk show hosts involved in the scandal attempted to make a public comeback. The host, who had been one of the most vocal defenders of the controversial remarks, announced that they would be launching their own independent digital talk show, free from network constraints. The announcement was met with immediate backlash, as many felt that they were attempting to capitalize on the controversy rather than take responsibility for their actions. Despite the host's efforts to rebrand themselves, their attempt at a comeback failed miserably. Sponsors refused to work with them, and their show struggled to attract an audience. The damage had been done. The lesson was clear. Media personalities could no longer get away with making reckless, insensitive comments without facing consequences. The days of hiding behind the excuse of just making a joke were over. As the dust settled, Kate Middleton's decision to sue remained one of the defining moments of the year. It had started as a reaction to a cruel remark, but had evolved into a much larger conversation about media ethics, accountability, and the need for stronger protections for public figures' children. The impact of her legal battle stretched far beyond the royal family, influencing media practices, legal standards, and public discourse across the globe. Perhaps the most unexpected outcome of all was how Kate's bold move strengthened her own position within the royal family. Even those who had been skeptical of her influence as the future queen consort now saw her in a new light. She had proven that she was not just a ceremonial figurehead, but a woman of action, unafraid to stand up against injustice. Her popularity soared to unprecedented levels, solidifying her as one of the most respected figures in modern royalty. The ripple effects of Kate Middleton's lawsuit continued to shape the global conversation on media ethics, free speech, and the responsibilities of public figures. While the case had officially ended with a ruling in Kate's favor, the debate it sparked showed no signs of dying down. Instead, it expanded into new and uncharted territories, influencing everything from political discourse to the way major media corporations operated. One of the most surprising developments following Kate's legal victory was the way it reframed discussions about freedom of speech. Traditionally, Western media had prided itself on a near unlimited right to express opinions, even when those opinions bordered on cruel or insensitive. However, Kate's lawsuit had forced people to question where the boundaries of free speech should lie, particularly when minors were involved. Prominent legal analysts weighed in, debating whether the lawsuit set a dangerous precedent that could be used to silence media voices in the future. Some journalists feared that Kate's victory could lead to an increase in lawsuits against opinion-based programs, restricting their ability to comment on public figures. However, others argued that the ruling did not stifle free speech. It simply reinforced the idea that there was a moral and legal line that should not be crossed, especially when it came to children. Across social media, heated discussions erupted between those who believed that Kate had done the right thing and those who thought the lawsuit was a step toward censorship. High-profile celebrities, politicians, and activists took sides, with some praising Kate's decision as a much-needed reckoning in media culture, while others voiced concerns that such lawsuits could be weaponized by the powerful to control narratives. The most interesting aspect of this debate was the way it influenced broader media policies. News organizations, wary of potential legal repercussions, began implementing new training programs for their hosts and journalists, ensuring that they understood the ethical boundaries of discussing minors in public discourse. Editorial guidelines were revised, and some networks even hired specialists in media ethics to oversee their content. Meanwhile, within the walls of Buckingham Palace, Kate's victory sparked an internal discussion about the royal family's relationship with the media. For decades, the royals had followed Queen Elizabeth II's famous never complain, never explain philosophy. But the lawsuit demonstrated that this approach was no longer sufficient in the modern digital era. Prince William in particular took a proactive role in reshaping the royal family's media strategy. He and Kate began working with a dedicated team of advisors to determine how they could maintain a balance between transparency and protection. A key part of this strategy involved increased legal vigilance. Whereas before, the royal family would ignore even the most vicious media attacks, they now signaled a willingness to pursue legal action when necessary. This shift did not go unnoticed by British tabloids. While many publications had already been forced to adjust their coverage following Kate's lawsuit, some of the more notorious tabloids, known for their relentless pursuit of royal gossip, grew wary of crossing the line. It became clear that the days of unchecked, exploitative reporting on the royal children were over. As time passed, an interesting cultural shift took place regarding the public's view of royal children. Before the lawsuit, children of the royal family were often seen as entertainment figures, with every public appearance scrutinized and discussed by the media. However, Kate's stand had forced people to reconsider this perspective. Public perception of Princess Charlotte, in particular, underwent a significant transformation. Where she had once been the subject of casual jokes and media speculation, she was now viewed in a more respectful light. The press coverage around her became noticeably more positive, with publications focusing on her achievements rather than her mannerisms or expressions. This shift was not just limited to Charlotte, it extended to other royal children, including Prince George and Prince Louis. The conversation about protecting their privacy grew stronger, and many media outlets voluntarily scaled back their coverage of royal children, choosing instead to focus on more substantive aspects of the royal family's work. Interestingly, Kate's lawsuit also had an unexpected impact on the entertainment industry. Inspired by her bold stance, several A-list celebrities who had long been targeted by tabloids decided to follow suit. Hollywood actors, musicians, and athletes who had been subjected to years of invasive reporting about their families started taking legal action against media outlets that spread false or damaging narratives about their children. One of the most high-profile examples came when a famous American actress, who had previously avoided public confrontations with the media, sued a major tabloid for publishing misleading stories about her child. In her official statement, she credited Kate Middleton's lawsuit as the inspiration behind her decision, stating that it had given her the confidence to fight back against unethical reporting. This marked a turning point in how celebrities handled media scrutiny. Instead of simply enduring the harsh reality of tabloid culture, they now had a legal precedent to push back against harmful narratives. Several major law firms specializing in media law saw a surge in high-profile cases, and some of the world's biggest entertainment agencies began advising their clients on how to take proactive legal measures to protect their children from media exploitation. While Kate's lawsuit was primarily centered around media ethics, its impact unexpectedly extended into the political sphere. Politicians across the globe weighed in on the implications of the case, with some calling for stronger legislation to prevent media outlets from targeting children. In the United Kingdom, a group of MPs proposed the Royal Children's Protection Act, a bill aimed at increasing privacy rights for children of high-profile individuals. The bill proposed stricter penalties for media outlets that published misleading or harmful information about minors and sought to establish clearer guidelines for responsible reporting. The United States saw a similar push, with lawmakers introducing new discussions about privacy laws for the children of public figures. While existing defamation and privacy laws already offered some protection, the conversation sparked by Kate's case led to a renewed interest in expanding those protections. While the lawsuit had initially impacted just one talk show, the broader industry soon felt the consequences. The scandal served as a cautionary tale for television hosts who had built their careers on provocative, unfiltered opinions. Networks began enforcing stricter oversight on live programming, and producers became more cautious about allowing inflammatory content to air. One of the most dramatic developments came when another major talk show host, known for their controversial and often divisive remarks, was fired after making an inappropriate comment about a public figure's child. The incident, which occurred months after Kate's lawsuit, demonstrated that public tolerance for media recklessness had significantly decreased. As more talk shows faced backlash for insensitive commentary, the entertainment landscape began to change. Networks started favoring hosts who engaged in more thoughtful, respectful discussions rather than those who relied on shock value to drive ratings. The shift was gradual but undeniable. Audiences no longer had the same appetite for mean-spirited humor or casual cruelty. Despite the lawsuit being over, Kate Middleton remained at the center of the global conversation about responsible media practices. She and Prince William expanded their advocacy work, partnering with international organizations to promote better protections for children in the media. They hosted summits, attended conferences, and worked closely with educational institutions to develop programs that taught young journalists about ethical reporting. Kate's influence also extended into the realm of mental health advocacy. Recognizing the deep psychological impact that media scrutiny could have on young children, she launched new initiatives aimed at providing mental health resources for children in the public eye. These initiatives received widespread support, with psychologists, educators, and policymakers praising her efforts. Years after the case was settled, its impact continued to be felt across multiple industries. The media landscape had fundamentally changed, with stricter regulations in place to ensure that children were protected from harmful narratives. The royal family had adapted to a new era, where they were no longer silent in the face of media attacks, but actively engaged in shaping their public image. For Kate Middleton, the lawsuit had been more than just a legal battle. It had been a defining moment in her legacy. She had not only defended her daughter, but had also set a precedent that would protect countless other children in the future. Her actions had demonstrated that even in an era of relentless media scrutiny, there were still lines that should never be crossed. As Princess Charlotte grew up, she did so in a world that was slightly kinder, slightly more aware of the impact of words, and slightly more respectful of the boundaries between public life and private childhood. And it was all because her mother had dared to stand up and say, "Enough!" Kate Middleton's lawsuit had shocked the world, but more importantly, it had changed it. And that, more than anything, was the true victory. As the dust settled from Kate Middleton's landmark lawsuit, the broader implications of her actions continued to unfold. The case had ignited a fundamental shift in media accountability, pushing networks, journalists, and online influencers to reconsider how they engaged with public figures and their families. But the true test of the lawsuit's impact would come in the years that followed, as both the royal family and the media industry navigated a transformed landscape. The royal family had long been accustomed to media scrutiny, but Kate's lawsuit had fundamentally changed how they handled public narratives. While the monarchy had historically preferred to remain silent in the face of controversy, this new approach allowed them to defend themselves in a measured yet assertive manner. This shift was particularly noticeable in the way Prince William and Kate managed their children's public appearances. For years, royal children had been expected to make routine public appearances at major events, often leading to overanalysis of their behavior. However, after the lawsuit, the royal couple significantly reduced Charlotte, George, and Louis's exposure to the press. Their attendance at public engagements became more selective, and access to intimate family moments was limited to carefully curated official photographs released by Kensington Palace. This strategic shift not only gave the children more privacy, but also reshaped public expectations of royal children. Rather than being viewed as miniature celebrities, they were increasingly seen as young individuals who deserved a childhood free from undue media scrutiny. The fallout from the lawsuit marked the beginning of a steady decline in the worst excesses of tabloid journalism. In the wake of Kate's case, several media outlets found themselves under increased legal scrutiny, with courts and regulatory bodies taking a harder stance against defamatory and misleading reporting. Tabloids that had once thrived on sensationalist coverage of the royal family were now forced to tread more carefully. This shift was particularly evident in online media. Gossip blogs and social media pages that had previously profited from clickbait articles about celebrities' children saw a drastic decline in engagement. Readers became more critical of exploitative narratives, and many platforms updated their content moderation policies to prevent the spread of harmful rhetoric against minors. Surprisingly, this change also led to the rise of more responsible journalism. With the demand for invasive gossip declining, media outlets began investing in more substantive reporting. Long-form journalism, investigative pieces, and ethical entertainment coverage saw a resurgence, proving that audiences were willing to support quality reporting over sensationalism. The lawsuit not only cemented Kate Middleton's reputation within the royal family, but also elevated her global influence. International organizations advocating for children's rights began inviting her to speak at conferences, recognizing her as a powerful advocate for ethical media practices. Philanthropic organizations working to combat cyberbullying and online harassment reached out to collaborate with her, inspired by her efforts to foster a more respectful public discourse. She was even nominated for several humanitarian awards, not just for her work in mental health and early childhood development, but also for her role in redefining how the media should approach discussions about children. Her advocacy led to partnerships with mental health professionals who worked on creating resources for families navigating media exposure. While the lawsuit had primarily targeted traditional media, its influence extended into the realm of social media. Online discussions about public figures' children became noticeably more cautious, with many influencers and content creators realizing the potential consequences of their words. Social media platforms, recognizing the significance of the case, implemented new policies against the harassment of minors. Algorithms were updated to limit the spread of harmful content, and reporting mechanisms were strengthened to allow users to flag inappropriate discussions about children more effectively. While online discourse would never be entirely free from negativity, the lawsuit had played a crucial role in making digital spaces slightly safer for public figures and their families. For Princess Charlotte, the most direct beneficiary of her mother's lawsuit, the long-term effects would be profound. While she was still too young to understand the full implications of what had transpired, the legal battle had ensured that she, along with her siblings, would grow up in a world where their privacy was more respected. As she grew older, Charlotte's presence in the media remained carefully managed. Instead of being treated as a spectacle for public consumption, she was given the opportunity to develop her own interests away from the relentless gaze of the press. When she eventually reached an age where she could decide how to engage with public life, she would do so on her own terms, without the burden of the invasive scrutiny that had plagued past generations of royals. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Kate Middleton suing TV hosts for insulting Princess Charlotte? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.